Hi, Puja. Thank you so much for coming to BizTalk. How are you today?
Thanks, Max. Thank you. I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
Oh, good. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time. Before start talking about your great, I have to say, venture, would you like to give an introduction to yourself?
Sure. I'm Puja Mahajan. I'm born in Canada and based in Switzerland currently. By trade, I'm a mechanical aerospace engineer, but also environmental engineer. And during my studies, I did internships with the Department of National Defense in Canada, as well as with Ballard Power Systems, studying alternative fuels for transportation systems. So this was my first love, to be honest. But after graduating, I started a path in private aviation, working in different capacities throughout my career, and predominantly in aircraft operations and management. I was an executive overseeing several fleets of private jets for many, many years, over 25. And I loved every minute of it until we started in 2016 measuring emissions in Europe. And when we started doing this, I hit a wall with my business partner. We realized, wow, aircraft actually do have quite significant emissions. And not only that, there's really no tools to help us manage those emissions. And through the process of this being part of this EU ETS environmental trade scheme, emissions trading scheme, we had to learn a lot, how to measure our emissions, how to submit reports, how to manage our emissions, how to mitigate. There's so many things that we had to learn. And I realized that, this learning curve we went through, it was quite painful, that other operators were going through the same in Europe, but the rest of the world, it was coming. And so from this was born the idea of developing Azzera. And Azzera means to reset to zero, in Italian, azzerare. And we decided to build a company and a platform that supports businesses to measure their emissions, do compliance reporting if necessary, and mitigate those emissions. So turn their emissions into action in one platform. And we're starting with aviation.
Let's go with Azzera.
Okay. So let me share my screen. So aviation has a climate problem. We know this. And aircraft owners and operators must act immediately to start managing their emissions for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, they're under compliance issues. So there are programs called EU ETS and CORSIA, which require operators to measure their emissions and file reports. And if they have exceeded a certain threshold, they have to offset their emissions or pay for allowances. So these are things that are happening right now and subsequently are about to happen and affect the vast majority of aircraft operators and owners throughout the world. Of course, there's a lot of pressure in the marketplace, stakeholder pressure, owners, operators, and the marketplace. Flight shaming is a thing. And this is definitely not going on deaf ears. But as I mentioned earlier, there is this extreme lack of tools and knowledge in order to manage emissions. So Azzera was developed to answer these questions, to create a solution for all three of those problems in one. We connect with the flight operators software that has data about the flights. And that data through API integration is provided to our platform, where we can create a user profile that shows the emissions by flight for the operator. Those emissions can be transformed into a compliance report, depending on the scheme that they're under, whether it's CORSIA, EU ETS, or any other scheme that can be compiled for the scheme that is required. And they have a visual dashboard of how they're doing on each of those compliance schemes. And they can then access the trading marketplace, which allows them to acquire what they need to acquire in terms of carbon credits to offset their emissions, or sustainable aviation fuel credits, certificates to reduce their emissions, so they can mitigate their emissions directly into the platform. So this is just, again, it's compliance. We're creating transparency. All the transactions on that platform are recorded on a blockchain-based ledger. We don't use blockchain because it's fancy. We use it, or it's trendy. We use it because it actually makes sense from a public accountability and allowing and avoiding double accounting on the transactions. We also, in creating this tool, we are reducing the workload for the operator who is not equipped to do all of this. In terms of the market, we believe that if we look at trade volume of carbon credits, the emissions from aviation and shipping represent about 4% of the world's emissions, and that equates to about $5 billion, $4.9 billion in today's terms. And we believe Azzera can capture about 15% of the aviation and shipping emissions market, and our obtainable market is about 740 million. What we know is that the aviation market, this is a constant, has a CAGR of 4%. So there's increasing potential just on aviation alone. Our marketplace is a one-stop shop. I've mentioned this earlier. It's the only marketplace, it's the only platform, B2B SaaS, that does a combined work of addressing the compliance needs of the sector, measuring emissions and creating reports, as well as accessing the trading platform for carbon credits. So there's a trading platform. All three are done in one platform. It's a one-stop shop, and we are unique in the marketplace. We've created a wonderful team that have brought us to where we are today. It comprises of a PhD who is in carbon cycle modeling. He's our chief science officer. We have a senior carbon market analyst, Anand, who is helping us develop our carbon market access, as well as our CTO has over 25 years in software engineering. These are some of the highlights. We also have an environmental engineer who's helping us with the development of the carbon accounting schemes. We have a fantastic team split between Montreal and Zurich. And as I said, my partner and I both have over 25 years experience in building companies and managing teams, but specifically with our lead market, aviation. So with this incredible team, we've also achieved some wonderful success. In terms of partnerships and awards, we were selected as part of the climate fintech of, it's now called Tenity. It was previously called F10. And we were in amongst 8 startups that were chosen. We are just finishing that journey. We were also selected by Tenity to then pitch in Singapore at the Singapore FinTech Festival. And we partnered with InnovaBot in Canada to help us with the development of our MVP. And just most recently, we won a Startup Innovation Award in Davos at an event during the World Economic Forum. We've had some incredible traction pre-platform through brokerage and trade based on advisory. And we've done about 350,000 US on that. And these clients will be transferred to our platform once it's live. And we have secured and developed access to over 12 million tons of carbon credits that have been third-party validated. From a monetization perspective, we have 2 models. The first one is this advisory and brokerage, where we have transaction fees. And when the platform is released, which we call the exchange, we would have, again, transaction fees and a subscription fee model. And both would run in parallel in the future. Our plan is to really scale up rapidly. We plan to get to 5,000 customers by 2027. And we plan to reach about 25 million in EBIT by then. And our platform is scheduled at the end of this quarter to release its first MVP alpha and be ready for testing with clients. And our goal is to scale up this model, not just by limiting ourselves to aviation, but expanding to other sectors by connecting via API with other greenhouse gas accounting platforms. So whether it's shipping or whether it's any other business that has online digital GHG accounting, we can connect them and they can access our trading platform. Our goal also is on the supply end to build a digital registry that will allow for the accelerated production of carbon credits. And finally, we're asking for we're doing a raise of $1 million to extend our runway in support our market entry and scale up. So this is, I think, the end of our pitch, and that is Azzera.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I find your startup excellent, and I do find behind not only the idea, but how you executing extremely great. I'm pretty confident. I say the same to a guy 5 years ago. He came to pitch me in London. I had no funding left. Today has been bought for, I think, 50 million. So
wow.
I was right. But anyway, I lost some money.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. Now, let me ask you, I'm very intrigued by the mix of business model. Can you be more precise? Do you combine the advisory in Sahan Consulting on one side and offsetting offsetting emissions and also trading and buying and selling carbon credits?
Yes. You know, the thing is, what we discovered in going through this journey ourselves in building Azzera is that while we were super keen on doing something about sustainability, the rest of the world still has to catch up. And while people here and are bombarded by climate change is an issue, the motivation has been up until now really mostly driven by compliance needs. A lot of people know they have to do something, but they don't know what to do and they don't understand. And particularly on the measurement of emissions, because that's the starting point. You can't manage what you don't measure. So while we would love to just have a SaaS platform and let it run by itself, I don't think that's a practical way to bring climate change and bring an audience or target market to the platform. They need to be educated to get there. Once they understand, and once they get to the platform, then it's smooth sailing. But we need to have an education component in fighting climate change. And that's where the advisory has come in. And it's really successful. And it's actually what I've noticed over the last year is that it's a shortening of the advisory cycle time because people are getting more and more educated. So we've used this tactic of thought leadership in our social media and throughout all of the channels, the digital marketing channels, because we feel like people need to hear and understand what this is about. And it's working. It's working for sure.
What about the carbon credits? Because you can buy and sell, for what is my understanding, on your platform.
Yeah.
Just offsetting your emission. How does you provide the market, let's call it market, where credits are bought, and how do you decide the price?
Yeah, so this is a good question. You hit the nail on the head. We wanted to create an exchange to drive supply and demand dynamics to create pricing, because it doesn't really exist today. There's no centralized exchange for voluntary carbon credits. Now, the compliance credits in the EU are regulated and they do have a market price. So that can be reflected in our exchange. And we wanted to create a centralized location where people can manage all their emissions, whether it's for voluntary offsetting or compliance credits. And our goal with the reason why we chose a trading platform is we want to support suppliers. We want suppliers to have the benefit of trade to increase the valuation of their carbon credits. Today, it's really clear that carbon credits are very low priced, especially on the voluntary market, which doesn't help in the production or development of new technology and maintaining these projects. We have a lot of work to do to offset the emissions of the world, right? So we need the funding to be diverted to these projects and to these technologies like direct capture to accelerate the presence of those projects in the world.
May I ask you why the price is so low? I mean, normally market prices are low when there's abundance.
Yeah. So the prices are low for a variety of reasons. Number one, because the uptake has been traditionally poor, right? And the suppliers have had no sort of guidance on how to price their credits and finance their projects. So there's been no central guidance. A lot of this has been run through charity function or .orgs. And so they're not in it. They're not thinking about profitability. They're not thinking about pricing enough. And so there's no financial dynamics, market dynamics involved. Through a market exchange, you can then start to increase the value of these credits. And people can, when investors can know that they can buy a credit and actually generate some profit from the resale, it'll start to increase the value, increase the amounts that are going back to the suppliers.
Yeah, I also believe that a high price will be better for the environment, which means it's more costly to buy.
And it's more costly to emit.
Exactly. So you should in somehow reduce your emission.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of, let's talk a bit more about market. Where are you today and where are you going to?
Yeah, so today we're focused on private aviation, corporate aviation, and that's our primary market. It's what we know. What both my partner Nick and I are from private aviation, and we have the network. And there's over 22,000 business jets in the world, so there is quite a significant market there. Most of them are subject to some form of compliance scheme or about to be. So they need some sort of handholding to get to be compliant, and they don't have this as part of their core business. Commercial aviation is the next step, and with Corsia, we will be doing a targeted focus on Corsia, which is a big compliance scheme for corporate aviation internationally, and then from there, shipping, freight, trucking, all of these things will become the next targets.
In terms of aviation, do you believe that moving to the private and after moving to the commercial one, which are much more structured, and it's for you a kind of learning curve?
For
doing
sure.
more before going to the guy where you sit down, maybe they get even some knowledge about.
Yes, because we want to prove the platform that it works, that it has when you have a fleet of 10 aircraft as a private jet operator, private jet operations are typically much more hands-on. They can be equally structured to an airline, but they're not scheduled service, so they don't have the same volume. This is the difference. It's the amount of volume in flight activity. So this is where I think we really know this market. We understand the operators. We understand their concerns. We also understand that it's not their core business to manage emissions. Okay. So we're here to help. We want to create a tool that makes it effortless. And we want to create a tool that works for big volumes. When we get to commercial aviation, we want that trading platform to be working well.
In terms of, you are pretty much, and we work into blockchain as well, which is I'm a big fan. People still believe that blockchain is crypto, by the way. But getting more precisely, what about the IP? Does it belong completely to you and your team? And how blockchain plays inside?
Yeah. So for sure, we plan to own as much of the IP as possible, and with regards to blockchain, the goal is to use something that that is not fully diversified, so that we can control it. Now, I don't know about IP, but we definitely want something that we can control, so that we don't have like a completely diversified chain. It's self-managed, and that we can control it, but it's still public.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's completely clear. I mean, this is why blockchain exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure the transactions are done per one per time, and the same person is not doing double time.
That's right.
but we avoid scams and all this kind of stuff. And maybe this is why it's still not well used.
Or well known. It's not. It's hard to understand for the average person. So yeah.
I mean, let's go a little bit more personal. Why you're doing this? I mean, what brings you to getting such a tough job every day? Because startup is tiring. It's extremely tiring. And do not give up. You must have a lot of passion. So what brings you here?
Yeah, and let's add the layer that I'm not like a young 22-year-old who's starting out and has this idea and running a startup. No, I've had my career, and this is the second half, and it's definitely energized me tremendously to build this business because it's an intersection of both of my passions, environmental and aviation, and building. What gives me energy, honestly, every day is the team we've assembled at Azzera. We have such a passionate and wonderful team that are committed. They understand what, for them, they're obviously much younger. They have this commitment to climate change and stopping it, and sustainability, and building something that is high tech but practical. And every single person on the team goes above and beyond every day. And that inspires me, of course.
Let me close with vision. I mean, where do you see Azzera in, let's say, 3-5 years' time?
Oh, we're a startup. We can pivot at any time. But our goal right now, slow and steady, is to get to a stage where we're the #1 platform in aviation for emissions management. And that's our goal, for sure.
Funding, by the way, how much are you raising?
Oh, yes, 1 million and more if anybody wants to bring us more.
Let me just one more thing, and after I close, I promise. What's your investor persona? What are you looking for?
Yeah, so I mean, ideally at this stage, because we're still quite early, the investor persona is familiar with aviation, understands a little bit the industry, and wants to bring some sort of value to us, from maybe has some connections, has a network to help us with that. We're not here, we want to scale, and we want savvy investors, but right now our cap table is small, and we want to bring somebody in who can add value to the company.
Puja, thank you so much for coming to BizTalk. It's been a very great pleasure for me. I really wish you all the best, and helping EquityMatch, I'm sure actually we can help you.
Thank you so much, Max. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.